Last month I decided to make 30 videos in 30 days, and I learned more about creativity in these 30 days than I've ever learned before. Being in the ideation process, the planning, the filming, the editing, over and over again in an endless creative cycle was the thing that unlocked both my channel growth and my business growth. So let's get into exactly how you can enter your own creative loop so you cannot stop creating content, you cannot stop uploading, because that is the number one thing that will grow your business. I want to get you in today's video from somebody who uploads every couple weeks or every couple months, feels stuck, has a cold or non-existent audience, to somebody who is a prolific creator, somebody who uploads on a weekly basis very consistently at a minimum, because what that does is build a warm audience, an audience of people who have watched 5 to 10 of your videos in the last week or two, because those people will be the ones who buy. This is exactly what made me 50K. It doubled my sales in the month I uploaded 30 videos. So welcome to the YouTube loop, the creative cycle that this is all based on and built around. We've got ideate, plan, record, edit, and upload. That is the simple cycle that you're going to be doing, going through, and repeating. Every second that you spend within this cycle, you are immersed in the creative work. Now, outside of that cycle, it's a time where you're doing other things. It's a time where you're taking a walk. It's a time when you are reading a book, consuming content. And there are 3 things we need to look at that are incredibly important and fundamental to actually making this cycle work, instead of just making videos over and over again that don't actually move the needle. Now, first, let's look at this cycle as a whole. How long does your cycle take right now? Are you uploading weekly? Are you uploading monthly? When do each of these components happen? Now, if you don't know the answer to these questions in your own YouTube cadence, you're probably not in the creative flow. And so what we're doing in this video is setting you up with a creative cycle that you can become immersed in. And so what I recommend, minimum, is uploading once a week. That means that Monday to Sunday, you can strategically implement this cycle throughout your week. And I recently made a video covering my client Kian's weekly calendar that he used to get from 200 views per video to 20 to 40,000 views per video, while still only spending 3 to 4 hours a week in his entire YouTube process. I'll leave a link somewhere so you can go and check that out. But the key question here is, what if you made your cycle faster? What if you went from 1 month to twice a month? What if you went from 2 weeks to 1 week? What if you went from 1 week to 3 times a week? Or what if you tried going from 3 times a week to once every day? What if you made that cycle so fast that you became completely immersed in it? You started ignoring all of the outside noise, everything else apart from the work that you are in. You get lost in the cycle. You force your channel and business to grow. So for the sake of this video, let's walk through a 3-hour YouTube video cycle from ideation to upload and use that as the example. First, we've got ideation. Before we do anything else, we're coming up with the title and thumbnail for our video. We're not doing this the other way around, where we're speaking about random things and then trying to pin a title on it afterwards. We're coming up with the title and thumbnail first. And so by making sure you've got a good title and thumbnail, that then dictates all of the rest of the creative process. Because the next stage of the process, the planning, is when you start getting creative. It's where you pour all of your creativity into the process, but within those set creative limits of the title that you have just come up with. And so if in the ideation stage, you've given yourself 30 minutes to come up with the actual title and thumbnail, in this planning stage, you're giving yourself around 60 minutes or an hour to actually plan out your video and come up with the topic that fits within that title. Here you're doing things like coming up with frameworks, really cool points, analogies, and at this stage, it's really useful to have set checklists and frameworks for you to start drawing from. You're not staring at a blank canvas, and instead you're plugging your ideas into proven psychological plans that are going to hook your viewers. So this is where structures like pull, paint, point come in, and I'll leave a video in the description about that so you can check it out, because they can help you turn a vague point that you don't really know how to explain into something that slaps your audience across the face with the meatiness, the juice of the idea that you just presented. Also, right now, if you just want to grab a custom GPT called Pull Paint Points, where you can just voice note your ideas and then it will spit out a finished, awesome, epic point that hooks your audience in, check that out in the description below, enter your email, and I'll send that over to you. And once you've got your plan, there's no need to fine tune it too much. You've spent an hour planning, you look over it and you're like, I think I know what to say now. I've got some stories, analogies, I've got a framework, I've got the intro kind of nailed down. That's good enough. And so you go to your camera, you go to your setup, you press record, and you deliver. And speaking and delivering your idea is a different form of creativity now. You've exercised your sort of logical planning creativity, and now You're exercising your flow state performance creativity. It's time for you to drop in. Have your plan as a reference, but at some point, ideally you're even forgetting your plan because you're so immersed in what you are saying. The plan acts as a guide for your subconscious whilst your speaking and performance mode takes over and allows you to become magnetic so your audience keep watching. And if you thought this process was getting creative, it's about to get a whole lot more creative because editing is when you can start assembling your video together. And this is where so many people get caught up in the technicalities of editing. All you need to do is cut your video into its bare minimum form so it makes sense for your audience. And then within the time that you've given yourself to complete your creative cycle, you just try and make it as good as you can. So within the hour or 2 hours you've given yourself to edit, you are just adding as much stuff or taking away as much stuff as is necessary to make the best video possible. I'm talking text, some basic graphics, maybe some basic music, cutting your stuff together so it goes from a 20-minute video that's kind of filled with some ums, ahs, and some rambling to a 10-minute video that feels punchy and good to go. And finally, you get onto uploading, which is the most important bit. Not only because obviously you're putting your videos out there, which is actually going to have an impact on your channel, your views, and your sales, obviously, but way more importantly, you are closing the loop for yourself. You have now done that video, you have no more time to tinker on it, make it more perfect. It's out there, it's shipped, and you can now learn from it. Make your next video better. So now let's talk about what happens outside of the cycle, because in some ways this shit is even more important than what happens in the cycle. Remember I said that outside of the cycle is when you're not actually focusing on the creative work itself and you're kind of doing other stuff, maybe giving your brain a bit of downtime. If you use this time wisely, your videos will get better every single time. And if you use this time poorly, you'll probably be making the same video over and over again, which, if you're a beginner, probably isn't very good, which means your channel and business will likely not grow. The most important thing in this downtime is to make your videos better. And there's 3 key things that will help you do that. The first one is absorb. If you have half an hour extra in your day, don't spend it doom scrolling and instead spend it absorbing relevant information and topics that is pertinent to your channel. And so if you are making a guitar tutorial channel, maybe you're spending this time absorbing some new music theory or learning a new song that's going to spark ideas to make your next guitar video better. Or it might be listening to a podcast of your favorite guitarist talking about his journey and his mindset that you can then impart to your students. The difference between absorbing good stuff versus garbage is absolutely key in making your videos better in the long run. The second thing is to reference, and this is where you are looking for people on YouTube, either inside your niche or in adjacent niches, who are killing it, who are doing great stuff. And by being aware of what's happening in your own YouTube space, you can borrow from other people's ideas, tastes, content pillars, and start making your content and channel better. When we talk about creativity and art, we think about originality and innovation, but 99% of new original material just comes from a mishmash of different references. Recently I watched the movie Obsession, which I'm sure you've probably also seen, and the director Curry Barker and actress Indy Navarrete said that when they were thinking about her creepy character in the film, they watched another horror film that was made 4 years ago called Pearl on repeat to gain references and influence for her character. Another example of this is one of my favorite artists, a guy called McGee, who everyone has said has made the first truly original music that they've heard in such a long time. But whilst his music sounds and feels incredibly original, he's heavily drawing from 80s influenced sounds and mixing that with modern R&B, which then gives him that unique sound. So when you're referencing other people, how can you draw other references into your style that makes you start to feel unique? And this is where you start looking at your own personal branding pillars as well. You know, if you like nature and you like music, but you're making a channel about sales calls and how to do better at sales calls, maybe you could just make videos out in nature with a nice song playing in the background whilst talking about sales calls. That's going to differentiate you rather than being like every other hustle bro who's sat in a studio with really harsh lighting. When you absorb new content and you reference other people, it allows you to no longer ever have a blank canvas in front of you again when you are planning and ideating your videos, because you have so much more information that you collected from the next day in your downtime that you just cannot wait to start making more content. And finally, we have iterate. And in the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, amazing book, he talks about sharpening the saw. So he talks about doing all the work, but sharpening the tools that you have to do the work. There's an analogy, I can't remember if it's in that book or I heard it somewhere else, but it's 2 people have 3 hours to cut down a tree with a blunt axe or a blunt saw. One of them hacks away at the tree for 3 hours and only gets halfway through. The other guy spends 2.5 hours sharpening the saw and then cuts through the tree in 10 minutes. If within this 3-hour protocol, you are going about it with a blunt saw, i.e. poor ideas, not very good planning, not very good speaking, then you are operating with a blunt saw. And that's totally fine to start out with. It's so much better to start with a blunt saw than to not start at all. That's what you've got to do. But you want to be spending half an hour to an hour every day, ideally, sharpening the saw, getting better at the stuff within the creative cycle. So when you do it next time, it's better. So you might spend some extracurricular time researching, how do I make better packaging? How do I make better thumbnails and have better ideas in the first place? Better planning. How do I speak better? Better and faster editing. This is how you iterate and make your videos 1% better every single time. And if you do this regularly for 3 or 4 months, your videos will be completely unrecognizable. If you want to see me go through this entire 3-hour process and actually demonstrate to you how it works, I've just described to you, then watch this video next. You'll just see me do everything I've just said live in front of you so you can see exactly how this all works.